Politics here on KTN News, Kenya's only premier Sunday morning political program. So, Nairobi Speaker Beauty Salach ruled out any possibility of debating the suitability of Governor Mike Sonko's nominee for deputy before mid-February when the House resumes. KTN political reporter Maureen Mwangi sought to paint a picture of the capital county's leadership crisis and explains why Sonko stares at a tough week as he appears to get back in court with the Director of Public Prosecutions hell-bent on vetoing the governor's nomination. He did nominate one of his chief officers as deputy governor, that is Ann Mwenda. Take a look.
I do hereby nominate ... The
latest card in the gamble that is Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko's troubled political empire. A last-minute toss of City Disaster Management Chief Officer Ann Mwenda's name to the County Assembly for likely consideration to be his deputy late Monday evening. Strategically, only hours before the city members of County Assembly's informal sitting with Speaker Beatrice Alachi. But turns out Kananu's name may not be debated anytime soon. At least not until mid-next month when the House resumes from recess.
It's a matter of urgency. And I am going to have made a decision before the end of this week so that we can have possibly a special sitting early next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, to discuss that issue.
But more hurdles stand in the way of Kananu's journey to becoming Governor Sonkos Deputy. Director of Public Prosecutions Nurdin Haji, who previously sought Sonkos detention during trial on, among other grounds, likely witness intimidation, now vowing to appeal his bail terms on grounds that Sonko cannot purport to name a deputy, while his case is still active in court.
He can be escorted.
An appeal, insiders say, is likely to seek the Corruption Court's obstruction of Sonko from transacting county business from a private office, as was the case in his announcement of a deputy governor nominee.
I think
a legal question Nairobi Senator Johnston Sakaja argues the DPP should reconsider, as it might plunge the capital city county deeper into the prevailing crisis.
Of course, it must be done according to the law. And lawyers will do that. I'm not a lawyer. You know, the lawyers and they argue it out in court. But sometimes let's be more pragmatic and say, okay, yes, we have a case or we don't have a case against this person. But for the sake of the public, there's what we call public interest that overrides some of these provisions. And for public interest, Nairobi does need a deputy.
The mood is frustration. It is confusion. Because we have no way forward. We don't know who's in charge. We don't know where the ruling is going to come from, whether it's the Supreme Court, whether it's the Attorney General.
The DPP could ask the court, this is a matter of national importance, this is our capital city, can you review the governor's bail terms and allow him to pick a deputy governor? Just for that purpose.
Yet key county technocrats and Nairobians could be staring at tougher times ahead. Sonko had, in his 2 years in office, enhanced his role on decision-making in technical committees, a move at the time he said was meant to weed out city cartels, but which ingeniously, insiders say, made it largely impossible for top county technocrats to make key critical decisions without the governor's consent. A predicament, sources say, now stands even on the way of county ministers, following the court order barring the governor from office.
I run a private business, and I can tell you in the construction industry, construction permits have not been approved for 9 months now. So you have hundreds of thousands of jobs, watu wa mjengo, who are at home because we who build houses cannot get a permit to build the house.
And so you have a county that is limping, it's just surviving on, you know, our prayers. Yeah, and that is a problem. So we want that stability. We want it to be clear that if you're a chief officer in this role, this is your department, this is your role, you do your work, there will be no political interference, there will be no intimidation, there will be no insults, you do your work. That is what we need.
Even as it emerged that anti-graft body EACC is not yet done with Sonko's administration, with further probes targeting other top county staff, among them Acting County Secretary Simon Lebo, who is due to appear before EACC sleuths on the 16th of this month to answer queries over a suspected 196 million shilling scandal relating to the Dandora Stadium construction works. The summons curiously happening only 24 hours after Sonko's scheduled court appearance on the 15th. With a court date in under a week, a DPP on his case and MCAs scheming to impeach him, Governor Sonko's troubles continue into the new year, with a green city under the sun yet again in political darkness. Murumi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Yes, so Governor Mike Sonko nominating one of his chief officers as deputy, that being the DPP, hitting out at that, saying he has no mandate to do that. The County Assembly not ready to vet that nomination. Dismiss. What are the ramifications for Nairobi? Not the governor is basically incapacitated, no deputy. What next for Nairobians?
Well, Mr. Jonathan Mwek has put it in very well. Right now, Nairobi is on autopilot. We are about to collapse anytime because there is no leadership. Even the people who are in leadership, like the speaker, for some reason, she wants to tiptoe around critical issues. And maybe before we make progress, let's identify the source of the problem. The source of the problem is Jubilee as a political party, because they told us they're going to give us Mike Mbuvi Sonko, whose principal duty is to do politics, lying prostrate in the streets of Nairobi. And then he was going to have a very solid deputy who was going to be the person running the show. For some reason, the gentleman could not survive for a day, so he decided to leave office. And for lack of a better word, in a very ingenious manner, a clever manner, Sonko ensured that he doesn't have a deputy. For him, that was his insurance. He said, I'm not going to name a deputy governor anytime soon, so that you don't take me to court. If you take me to court and I'm not able to deliver, let the Nairobians suffer, which is really voodoo logic. And for me, this idea being proposed by some of the elected leaders in Nairobi, that let's go back to the DPP and review the bail terms, and we give him exceptional circumstances in the name of public interest for him to appoint a deputy governor. I think that logic doesn't apply. Because now we'll be creating an environment where all governors who want to plunge into mischief will not appoint a deputy governor. And they take a very good insurance, which I find it unacceptable. There's a ruling by the High Court and Court of Appeal that when you are a governor under these circumstances, you cannot exercise your office. Now, some lawyers, clever lawyers, they're claiming it's the physical space that you're not supposed to access, but it's the discharge of your duty. And you see now they fault the High Court and Court of Appeal by saying that they're removing the governor from office. No, the governor has not been removed from office. It's only because you have been implicated in, or rather there are allegations, you've been stopped from discharging the duties of your office. So it's not, you know, even for people who don't go to church, the church is not the physical building, the mabatis and bricks. It's the body, the people who are gathered to pray. So even for this office, they don't mean the physical. I mean, there's nothing which stops Governor Mbuvi Sonko from transferring all the files from City Hall to his village home in Machakos and running Nairobi.
A lot of people have lauded Justice Mumbi Ngugi for that. Are you one of them? Was it a very good ruling?
That was an A ruling, because Justice Mumbi did what our members of the National Assembly and Senate have failed to do, to activate the Leadership and the Integrity Act. Because when they were given the opportunity, they mutilated a piece of legislation which secures their interest. But for Justice Mumbi, he gave, she gave life to this leadership, to Chapter 6. Because, I mean, you've been accused of stealing people's cows. And then the judge has indicated you cannot go back to that boma. And then you disregard the rules, you say, I'm still going back to that boma. You cannot be allowed to visit a crime scene. And a crime scene here does not necessarily mean the physical space.
Okay.
Because, you know, you can take all those files and you'll be having the cabinet meetings in your village in Machakos.
So, be that as it may, Hesbon, so as the people of Nairobi, how long do we pay for this? We seem to be in a conundrum because we are lauding Justice Mumbi Ngugi for that ruling that keeps Mike Sonko's hands tied, but there's no deputy governor. So, in your opinion, what should be the next course of action? Because service delivery to the people is being affected. People have a right to be to the right leadership in full capacity.
I think I listened to the Speaker of the Nairobi County Assembly, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, and she was coming up with a proposal of bringing back the suspended officers who essentially are the ones who make the services crippled through the county public service board. And you'd want to look at that as a solution, especially if it doesn't contravene any legal provisions, because we must be inventive without breaking the law. So that is one direction, that if there is a way in which the county assembly can manage to get the executive arm of the county government functioning and delivering services to the people, that is the route that we should take. But be it as it may, you realize that we applauded, we even encouraged Sonko to get us into this space, because when he was doing some of these things, I think he had seen the end game, and he knew that the only way to survive is to create a situation where there is chaos everywhere. Because if Elachi was to have the debate of the nominee in the county assembly, the question would be, that was a Jubilee ticket, so Jubilee has to have an input. And I think Sonko, from where he sits, he knows that this is going to prolong the chaos. Then the second thing is, if Sonko is allowed to contravene the provisions of his bail term, and that appointment is given credence, that appointment, from where I see it, without even any legal background, is null and void. I mean, if you are not in office, you cannot then you cannot make pronouncements that affect the operations in the office. It's as simple as, if you're on leave, you cannot write a letter because you're not even in the office. So he's not there. It doesn't matter where he does it, it doesn't pass the legal threshold. Okay. So which direction are we going? If you look at the provisions of how the governor gets into office, how he's removed, how someone takes over from the government, it actually culminates to Article 192 of the Constitution. And the more we prolong this crisis, the more we are going to give the national executive, and specifically the president, the reason to form a commission of inquiry. And once that is done, then the law will automatically take its course. And the position that we'll find ourselves is, again, going to be slightly tricky, because then the president will appoint a committee to run Nairobi, but then this committee will be at the behest of the Senate. Okay. And with the politics between Tanga and Kieleweke in the Senate, you may also not understand how that will pan out. But from where I see it, I think ultimately we are likely to get to that space.
From what he's saying, and we've had this conversation about Nairobi ever since Mike Sonko was sworn in as Nairobi governor in 2017, tussle between himself and national government over this very important county. From where you sit, who is to blame for this crisis?
The truth of the matter is this. Our failed political party system gifted us Sonko. The other failed institutions are IEBC, DCI, and DPP then, whose job it was to vet candidates for these particular positions. They failed in vetting Miguna in terms of dual citizenship. They failed in vetting Mike Sonko in terms of his citizenship at Shimolatewa and other such facilities. They failed. That's the truth.
Exactly, because they have all that information.
They have all that information. But you see, it is one of the results of impunity that it was an open secret. Everyone knew that Sonko had a stint at Shimolatewa. In fact, it is also in debate as to whether he left prison because he was sick, I will not say which disease, or he escaped it. We don't know, but the fact is those institutions failed. But even worse is the failure of the people of Nairobi to stop him in his tracks when he was doing what he was doing. And let's be clear, if Kidero's case is anything to go by, then it is proof positive that when as governor is still sitting, the people, the DCI, and all the institutions that are put there to provide checks and balances must do their job. The truth of the matter is this: those MCAs who are now debating whether to impeach him or not, the question I have for them, where have you been? Because impeachment exists to save the people of the Republic of Kenya from bad leadership, and they should have done so before. And let me also address the issue of this letter. This letter is very dangerous because Waititu is watching. The Samburu governor is watching, and every other criminal-minded lawyer governor is watching. They are watching to see if that letter is acceptable in the floor of this county assembly. I promise you Waititu will write another one. He will write another one and he will say, I have written. But also let's look at it quite progressively. Kenya is a Commonwealth country. And our laws and binding documents are signed at headquarters. Let's be very clear. If you look at where Mwai Kibaki signed bills, it is where Uhuru Kenyatta signs bills. Uhuru Kenyatta cannot even sign those bills at DOD headquarters, which is a few meters away from State House. You cannot write official letters willy-nilly, because what then will be providing is a system where letters being written cannot be verified. Secondly, let's ask, he is not supposed to access his office, correct?
Yeah.
So where did he get the official governor's seal to seal that document? Where did he get the paper, the letterhead? Because official documents, as you know, are not written on this A4 paper you buy 500 bob per rim. They're written on official paper. So where did he get that official paper? Is Sonko already in contravention of his bail terms in terms of being able to write that paper, that letter? Thirdly, how, in God's name, do we accept a nomination which was read thus: I hereby nominate dash, dash, dash. That is how Sonko nominated someone. And we're seriously seated here discussing a nomination.
Well, it's a nomination, isn't it?
That's not even how you nominate a head chicken among your brood of chickens. It is ridiculous. And let me tell you something. Sonko did this to test us. That's all he's doing. He's testing the waters to see what he can get away with. And I can tell you, like preachers say, you give him an inch, like the devil, he'll take an entire mile.
Very quickly, where do we go from here as Nairobi?
Article 192. And I know people will say, oh, it's government taking over. It's not. Because by law, if the Commission of Inquiry concludes and says that these are indeed exceptional circumstances and we need a county management committee, that committee can only be in office for 3 months, after which we will go to an election. And I will tell my fellow Nairobi constituents the very good news that I would rather have an election to replace Sonko than try and continue playing these games down the road. It's too expensive.
Hesbon, where do we go from here? Do you think we have reached, Nairobi has reached the threshold?
Well, I think we have. We have reached that threshold of a crisis, and I think the person who is deliberately or inadvertently doing this is Mike Sonko. He's creating more crises in Nairobi, and is moving us towards Article 192, which is the safest route, where we'll have a committee for a period of 3 months, that is 90 days, and of course it is only Senate that can vacate that committee. And even if Senate does that, what we'll have is an election.
All right. Dismas?
An election is long overdue. I don't know why we have not had an election in Nairobi.
Some people will say that is, like you said, government taking over. Like they have always wanted that, according to Sonko's people. They've been hounding him out of office, creating all these problems for him to take over the county of Nairobi.
Part of the reason why we may have that election is because of either an act of omission or commission by Governor Sonko himself. There is nobody who was holding a gun on his head telling him, Mr. Sonko, you cannot appoint a deputy governor. He should have appointed a deputy governor a long time ago. And he was clutching on straws by saying there is no specific act of parliament, or maybe Senate, whatever it is, giving me direct instructions. But you know, we have good precedents. Remember what has happened in Nyeri and what happened in Kericho. There's very good precedent that you can actually nominate somebody. But for him, because I think he sat down and he did his mathematics on the mischief he was going to undergo or maybe execute, he decided to take an insurance. The insurance is not to have a deputy governor. So right now, essentially what he's doing is actually holding the entire nation hostage. He's holding Nairobi hostage by not having a deputy governor. The former deputy governor, Mr. Mweka, has indicated that the construction sector is collapsing. There are no permits being given. And then the Jubilee president says, we're talking about Big Four. We want to put up houses. So are we going to be getting those permits for houses in Nairobi if the people are supposed to be giving permits are not doing the same? If construction companies are not in business? And you see there's a huge multiplier effect. If there's no construction in Nairobi, nobody's buying cement, nobody's buying ideri, nobody's buying wood, nobody's doing anything. So we cannot just sit back and say... Yeah, so we cannot just sit back and say, let's wait. Let's have an election. And then hoping that this time round again, the Nairobi voters will not shout TB or Kumira Kumira, they'll get a solid candidate to lead the nation.
And Ben, it's a dangerous narrative. And I've seen another politician who's just been released on bail. Every time politicians seem to be arrested, they turn it into this huge conspiracy theory, you know, that the government now is after me magically. You can't, listen, you can't beat up someone and then say the government created the beating. You cannot not nominate a deputy, then the government created. You know, there's this conspiracy theorism among a lot of our political class that every time they find themselves on the wrong end of the law, they blame those who are arresting them. And it's something that's unimaginable. If Mark Bichachi slapped someone out here, well, now what will I say? I'll say Dismas has been planning to take over the show to do it alone. It's ridiculous.
Thank you actually, but you know, that's interesting. Like the BBI meeting in Kisii was an overwhelming success. And you know, the deputy governor had told the deputy president that you made inroads. He did not participate. But now he's saying, I'm being persecuted because of supporting the deputy president. And in my view, all Kenyans, if you've stolen somebody's goats and you're going to be arrested, do not introduce the name of the deputy president. Just go to case, go to court, have your day in court, and you'll be cleared.
Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Inside Politics. If you're watching us from the county of Nairobi, tell us, prepare to tell us what you think about what's happening in the county of Nairobi. What do you think the next step is in terms of solving the leadership crisis in the capital city county of Nairobi? Very quickly, Obunga Apama says, we expect BBI to be about changes on the document instead of 2022 politics, as Tangatanga are turning it into. Munene says, the government is forcing leaders to accept BBI. Beba Baba Ikulu so desperately. Why? And Newton Mora says, and Bichachi knows it better. I don't know what he's speaking about, but he says, what happened at Bomas was enough to tell us that national unity is a foreign word in what's called the BBI.
I was not even in the country when Bomas was there.
Julius Basweti says, peace doesn't rest in charters and covenants alone. It lies in the hearts and minds of all people. So let us not rest all hopes on parchment, on paper. Let us strive to build peace, a desire for peace, a willingness to work for peace in the hearts and minds of all. Let's keep that conversation ongoing on Twitter. The hashtag is Inside Politics. When we come back, we shall be waiting to hear from you. Pick up your call. Call us. The numbers will be scrolling at the bottom end of your screen. Tell us what you think. Have the final say on our debates today. Stay with us.